The influence of Hellenistic religion on early Christianity is a topic that reflects the complex intersection of cultural, philosophical, and religious currents in the Mediterranean world following the conquests of Alexander the Great. This period, known as the Hellenistic era, saw the widespread dissemination of Greek culture, thought, and religious practices across the territories that Alexander and his successors ruled. As Christianity emerged in the 1st century CE, it was deeply shaped by the intellectual and religious climate of the time, with Hellenistic ideas playing a significant role in its development. 1. The Hellenistic world and religious syncretism. The Hellenistic world was a time of unprecedented cultural fusion. After the death of Alexander the Great in 323 BCE, his empire fractured, but Greek culture and language spread far beyond its original borders. The blending of Greek traditions with local customs led to a vibrant syncretism in religious practices. The Greek gods and goddesses, for instance, were often identified with local deities, creating hybrid forms of worship. In Egypt, the god Osiris was merged with Greek deities like Dionysus, and in Syria, the worship of the goddess Atargatis took on aspects of Aphrodite and Demeter. This syncretism created an environment where different religious traditions were more open to one another, and people frequently combined elements from various belief systems. The early Christians, emerging from this milieu, would have been exposed to these hybrid religious practices, which contributed to the evolution of Christian thought and rituals. Number 2. Mystery religions and early Christianity. One of the most significant influences of Hellenistic religion on early Christianity was the phenomenon of mystery religions. These were secretive cults that offered personal salvation and afterlife promises to their initiates. The mystery religions, which were particularly popular in the Roman Empire during the first few centuries CE, were centered around deities such as Isis, Mithras, and Dionysus. The mystery cults were attractive because they promised direct personal experiences of the divine, a form of spiritual engagement that was quite different from the public, civic religion of the time. The mystery religions often emphasized the themes of death and rebirth, offering rituals that promised an eternal life after death for their followers. These ideas were clearly attractive to many in the Hellenistic world, especially in a period marked by political instability and the fear of death. Christianity shared several key features with these mystery religions, especially in terms of its promise of eternal life and personal salvation. The central tenet of Christian belief, the resurrection of Jesus Christ, mirrored the symbolic themes of death and rebirth found in mystery cults. In addition, the Christian Eucharist, which commemorates the body and blood of Christ, can be seen as a parallel to the symbolic consumption of the flesh and blood of gods in mystery religion rites. Many early Christians were also familiar with the idea of baptism as a form of spiritual rebirth, another motif that echoed the initiatory rites of the mystery cults. While it is debatable how directly Christianity borrowed from these mystery religions, it is clear that both shared a common cultural and religious environment. Christianity's promise of an afterlife, the central role of initiation rites, and its emphasis on salvation were concepts that paralleled the offerings of the mystery cults, which would have made Christianity appealing to those who were familiar with these ideas. Number 3. Hellenistic philosophy and early Christian thought. In addition to religious practices, Hellenistic philosophy also had a profound impact on early Christianity. Philosophical schools like Stoicism, Platonism, and Neoplatonism were influential throughout the Mediterranean world during the time of early Christianity. Stoicism, with its emphasis on virtue, self-control, and living in accordance with nature, resonated with Christian ethical teachings. Early Christian writers such as the Apostle Paul incorporated Stoic concepts into their writings, particularly the emphasis on living in harmony with God's will. Platonism, with its belief in a transcendent world of forms, also had a significant impact on Christian theology. Early Christian thinkers like the Apostle John and later church fathers such as Augustine were influenced by Platonic ideas about the nature of reality and the relationship between the material and immaterial worlds. For instance, the Christian concept of a heavenly realm, in which believers would be united with God after death, is reminiscent of Plato's world of eternal forms, which existed beyond the corruptible physical world. Neoplatonism, a later development of Platonic thought, further contributed to Christian theology, particularly with its emphasis on the One, a transcendent source of all being. The Neoplatonist idea of a hierarchical cosmos, in which all beings emanated from the One, paralleled the Christian concept of God as the creator from whom all things emanated. The Neoplatonist philosopher Plotinus' concept of divine illumination also resonated with Christian ideas of divine grace. The influence of these philosophical traditions on early Christianity is most in the works of early Christian apologists, such as Justin Martyr and Clement of Alexandria, who sought to reconcile Christian doctrine with the prevailing philosophical systems of the time. While early Christians were wary of Greek philosophy and its polytheistic underpinnings, they still recognized its value in shaping theological discourse, and often adapted its concepts to fit Christian beliefs. For the role of Greek language and culture, Greek was the lingua franca of the Eastern Mediterranean world during the Hellenistic period, and its use continued into the Roman Empire. The New Testament, for example, was written in Greek, which allowed Christian ideas to be transmitted across the empire with relative ease. Greek philosophical and religious vocabulary provided early Christians with a linguistic framework to articulate complex theological ideas, such as the nature of the Trinity and the relationship between the divine and human aspects of Jesus Christ. Greek cultural concepts, such as logos, also played a role in early Christian theology. The concept of the logos, meaning word or reason, was central to Greek philosophy, especially in the works of Heraclitus and later Stoic thought. In the Gospel of John, the concept of the logos is identified with Christ. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. John 1:1. This identification of Christ with the Logos drew directly from Hellenistic thought, particularly the philosophical idea of a divine reason that governs the cosmos. Additionally, the spread of Greek culture meant that early Christianity emerged in a context where the influence of Greek drama, rhetoric, and art was pervasive. Early Christian writers, such as Paul and the Gospel writers, were familiar with Greek literary forms and often used them in their writings. The structure of Christian texts, such as the parables and teachings of Jesus, often reflects Greek rhetorical techniques, making Christian ideas more accessible to a Hellenistic audience. 5. The impact of Hellenistic religion on Christian rituals. The rituals of early Christianity were also shaped by Hellenistic religious practices. The Christian sacraments of baptism and the Eucharist can be seen as influenced by Hellenistic practices of initiation and religious feasts. For example, the use of water in baptism, symbolizing spiritual cleansing, had parallels in the purification rituals of mystery religions and other Hellenistic religious practices. The Eucharist, with its symbolic consumption of the body and blood of Christ, mirrored similar rituals in mystery cults, where initiates consumed the flesh and blood of the God they worshipped as part of their spiritual union with the deity. The Christian emphasis on the communal nature of the Eucharist also reflected the communal feasts held in honor of various gods in the Hellenistic world. In sum, the influence of Hellenistic religion on early Christianity was profound and multifaceted. The religious environment of the Hellenistic world, characterized by syncretism, mystery cults, and philosophical schools, provided a fertile ground for the development of Christian thought and practice. While Christianity was distinct from the prevailing religious traditions of the time, it nonetheless drew upon many of the ideas and rituals that were widespread in the Hellenistic world. From the concept of salvation and the afterlife to the language and philosophical frameworks used to articulate Christian theology, Hellenistic religion played a crucial role in shaping the early Christian movement and its evolution into a global faith.